Today we are talking to Dorothy Drew Scott. And Dorothy, if you could just tell us where you grew up and how you came to be a member of St. Mary.
You ready?
Go.
I grew up at St. Anthony, is where I was born. And I was born in Mercy Hospital in Marshalltown, but my folks lived north of St. Anthony on the Drew farm. And we lived there till I was 5 years old. Then we moved to Zering, and I lived there until I was 10 years old. I went to school at Zering until 4th grade. Then we moved to east of Ferguson to a farm, and we lived there a number of years, and I graduated from Ferguson High School. And when we moved to Ferguson, we became members of St. Mary's in 1940.
So you were married at St. Mary's?
Yes, I was, in 1950.
Oh. Where did you meet Bob?
Oh my goodness. Well, my cousin Howard J. was his classmate, and he had polio and wasn't able to carry his books and stuff, and Bob was kind of his classmate, and he took care of Howard while he was in school, of carrying these books and helping him with classes. And so he was at Howard's home, and Howard was my first cousin, so I met him through that, I guess.
Did you take any special classes before getting married, or?
Yes. And I think it was Ziegler was the priest that taught Bob.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you both went to the classes?
Yes, we did.
Was it Father Ziegler that married you?
No, Monsignor Myers.
Once you were married, did you join some of the groups from St. Mary?
I did. I went to the CCW, which was called Alder and Rosary Society back then. And I think it was Helen Benethan was the president, and she was so precise and everything had to be so. And she was a wonderful woman who took charge of the parish.
What sort of activities did you do with them?
I was a co-chairman for weddings. We had a lot of wedding receptions back then, and I was a co-chairman with Marie McLaughlin. I think we were maybe 2 years we did that, and we had quite a number of weddings. And then Betty Collison, I was co-chairman with her for a year, and Elma Huss, I was co-chairman with her for a year, and we had the wedding table with a satin pleated skirt, and we put that up every time, and it took us about a half a day to put that on the table, but then they would have punch on one end and coffee on the other end, and then it was a T-shaped, and they put the cake at the end, and somebody would cut the cake and serve it. But no more wedding receptions down there. Bob was a farmer, and he did not have time. We milked cows for 16 years, and I was so glad to see those cows leave when he wasn't able to milk anymore, and I even got up at 5:30 and took pictures of him loading the cows to go to the sale, because I was so happy to see him go.
You remember when they changed from Latin to English masses?
Yes, I do.
What did you think of that?
I was so happy. I really thought it was a good move.
Okay. And then when they let women start participating more, did you do any of the other services?
Yes. Bob and I both were Eucharistic ministers for must have been about 12 years.
Well, we appreciate your time and letting us interview you for the 150th anniversary.
Thank
So,
you.
mhm.
Today we are interviewing Roseanne Heil, married to Dick Heil, and she's going to tell us about her story in Haverhill.
I was born in a house south of Haverhill, and I lived there 1 month, and then my parents moved to north of Haverhill, about a mile, and I had 4 sisters, Gladys, Louise, Donna, and Sandra. And then I went to St. Joseph's School in Haverhill for 8 years. And then I went to Van Cleve for 3 years, and I played basketball for the 3 years. I was first sub on the basketball team my freshman year, and then my sophomore and junior year I was on the first team. And we had a pretty good team. If we'd have won another game, we'd have went to the state. So, then I met Richard in my senior year. I went to St. Mary's that year. There was a fellow that drove to Marshalltown, and so we had this ride, and my neighbor, my sister, and my cousin, we all rode with him, and we went to St. Mary's, and he went over to the senior high, and then he'd pick us up and bring us home. Started working in Marshalltown, and there was a fellow that lived north of us that drove to work too, he and his sister, and they picked me up, and his sister and I, we worked at Kresge's for a few months, and then we went to the laundromat, and I started ironing shirts, the cuffs and collars, and she worked in the laundry part. And so we worked there about a year, and then I quit to get ready then to get married.
I'm going to go back. First of all, I'm going to ask you about going to school at Immaculate Conception in Haverhill. So were you taught by nuns?
Yes.
Okay. What was it like? What was school like at that time? Was there a lot of discipline? Did you have to behave yourselves? Did you go to Mass every day?
We went to Mass every morning at 8 o'clock was Mass, and then it was over at 8:30. Then we'd go to school and go in our classrooms.
Did you wear uniforms?
No
No.
uniforms then. No dresses.
You had to wear dresses.
Well,
The girls did.
at that time there wasn't slacks for
That's
girls.
right. Yeah,
You
that's
wore
true.
long stockings.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Were you and Richard married in Immaculate Conception in Haverhill?
Yes. Yes. A little bit later than we wanted to, because we had our dinners, wedding dinners in the homes then. Our mothers prepared the meals, and then they had help with it. And my uncle and aunt were married in March of '48, and then a friend, Arlene and Lester Stalzer, were married in June, so we waited until August to get married then. We got married August the 9th of 48. And my mother made the dresses for the bridesmaids. I had the 4 sisters. They were all in our wedding, and she made their dresses. But we bought my dress, and it was at Britnell's at the time in Marshalltown.
Who was the priest that married you?
The priest lived right there in Haverhill. They had a priest's house right east of the church in Haverhill, and they still had priests that stayed there.
Did he have a housekeeper?
Yes, he did. Yes.
So you and Dick have been married 71 years this year.
In August we will be. Yeah.
71 years. That's incredible.
Yes.
What a blessing.
Yes. When we got married, then Richard's parents, they lived on a farm by North Estate Center, and then they moved into Marshalltown in August, so that they had 5 children in at home, and so they could go to the Catholic school. And then we went right into the home, and I was working to buy a dining room suite, bedroom suite, and a living room sofa and chair and carpet for the living room.
Oh my God.
And then Richard bought a washing machine, refrigerator.
Yeah, but the washing machine, was it electric?
Yes, you plugged it in.
Okay.
You heated the water on the,
Right.
on the
Yeah.
stove.
Yeah.
On the,
And it had 2, what do I want to call
no,
it? 2
this one
rollers?
didn't have 2 tubs.
No, 2 rollers, and you had to,
Yes.
yep.
Our oldest son, a year afterwards, Larry, and then Carol was born 2 years in 51. Then another daughter, Luann, in 54. And then Jeff was born in 57, and Kathy in 59, and Julie in 64, and our youngest, Rich, was born in 67, the same year that Larry, our oldest, graduated from high school. So that was a busy life. And, I also raised chickens and eggs, and Richard milked cows and had feeding cattle and hogs. Raised hogs.
How many acres did you have?
First we started out with 160, and then after that we had, in about 2 years, then we had 240 acres.
When you raised chickens, I'm assuming you collected eggs,
Yes.
sold some of the eggs, did you say?
Yes, sold
And then you
eggs.
probably butchered roosters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would, like the eggs we sold, that's what I pretty much used to buy our groceries and things. And then Richard milked cows, and he sold the milk. And then for a while we sold milk, and then for a while we sold the cream. But then that's what we paid to his parents for.
So your children, were your children married in Immaculate Conception also?
Our first one, yes, was Luann and Steve Warden. They were married at Immaculate Conception.
So did you go to Immaculate Conception until it closed?
Yes. We had, by that time, see, we lived up at St. Anthony State Center 15 years, and then we moved to Haverhill. And then our children then went to school there at Haverhill. And then, let's see, Jeff and Luann and Carol went to Haverhill. Then it closed. And then they went into St. Mary's to school. First, Larry rode with my sister Donna. She worked in town, and my sister lived right in Haverhill. So he rode with her to school, and then after a few years they got a bus that they came and picked him up then. And so then they all rode the bus into school.
How did you all feel when the Haverhill Church was closed by the Archbishop?
We had already started into St. Henry's just a few months before that happened. And it was closed. So we had already started coming into church.
You've been married 71 years.
Yes.
What changes have you seen in the church, especially for women?
I didn't work outside of the home. I just stayed home and took care of my children, and I was fortunate that we could do that, that Richard made enough, that we could, that I didn't have to go to work.
But you worked. Oh, believe me, I know that you worked.
Yes.
You contributed to the finances of your home.
Yes. Yeah. Now my oldest daughter, Carol, helped me with the cooking after she got old enough, and Luann was good with children, and so she would always entertain Jeff and Kathy. And
you and Dick have practiced Catholicism all of your life.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
What do you think that has given to your life?
Oh, everything we needed.
And you still go to daily mass.
Yes,
I know
we
you
do.
go every Friday. Do you go to other daily masses?
We go every Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday is the children's mass. It's a later time, so we don't go usually on Thursday. Then we go on Friday.
And enjoy coffee and donuts.
Yes.
Unless you have to go get your hair done.
Yes. Well, I still go get coffee and donuts, and I get my hair done after after I have the coffee and donuts.
And which one of your daughters is the beautician?
Julie.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
She's a beautician, so she does my hair every Friday, about 8:45. I try to get there.
Regretfully, one of your children has died.
Yes. Yeah, Luann had, after she had taught preschool about, well, she did for 27 or 8 years, and then, yeah, she got cancer, and when she first got it, they told her she had 2 years to live, but she lived five years, and we would all take turns going with her to Iowa City to get treatments, and then when finally they told her that she just had a short time left, she decided to just go home and she stayed at home from January until the 1st of March when she passed away. And we used to go to Arizona, but when we found out that she was only going to live a short time, we came back. We was probably only in Arizona a few weeks, and then we came back. And then we would go over with her every day in the morning, 5 days a week. And so Steve could go do what he needed to do. And then on Saturday, which we didn't go, and that was the morning then she passed away. So,
Well, she was a lovely woman. You guys did a great job in raising her. She was a wonderful lady.
yes.
Do you have any final comments about the Haverhill Church? What made it different than St. Henry? What made going there special?
We went to daily mass there, but Richard was a lector and gave communion. And he did this out there for quite a few years. And
You went to Mass when Mass was in Latin.
yes.
You remember that?
Oh, yes.
So do
Yes.
you like Mass in English?
Oh, yes. Yes, at least I know what I'm saying now, or Latin. Of course, I grew up with Latin. We even sang. I sang in the choir in Haverhill, and we did a lot of it in Latin.
And did you have high Masses
Yes.
and low Masses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we had.
And all of the candles, remember all of the candles that we used to have on the altar?
Yes.
Yeah. And at Haverhill, at Immaculate Conception, did the altar boys wear the black and the white cassocks? Is that how you pronounce
that's
it?
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah. Well, we're nearing the end of our time, Rosaline. Any final comments to make about Haverhill or growing up Catholic, being Catholic?
How do you say it? It formed my life, formed my thinking in life. And I remember Richard said too, when he first came and dated, if I hadn't been Catholic, he wouldn't have went with me,
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, one final comment I have to make is that you and Richard are an extreme example to all young people of what a marriage should be. Because you guys, you practice the sacrament of
Yes.
marriage.
Yeah.
You really do. Well, thank you, Rosaline, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yes. You're welcome.
Okay, we're talking to Father Tom Braack today for our 150th anniversary. And Father Tom grew up here, so if you could just tell us a little about your family and going to St. Mary's School.
Okay. We arrived here in Marshalltown in 1938. I was in kindergarten, and we went through grade school. I think there were 5 classrooms in the lower level of the school. And my older brothers, my older brother was in high school, and he went to the high school at that time to play football. And so did my second brother. But I stayed at St. Mary's for the duration, and it was in 5th grade that the school burned down.
Oh,
And that was tragic.
yeah.
We lost the school. It was right after Christmas. And we had, several weeks without school. And we had to make them all up.
Oh,
We had to make them up on Saturdays. And then we had to make them up during the summer. I think we went all through June.
yeah.
And that was awful. But my parents, my father was the golf professional out at Elmwood, and my mother was in charge of the kitchen. My dad was also manager and also the greenskeeper. They really threw the work at us because it became wartime, in 41. And it was very difficult to get anybody to do any other work. And my older brother, when he graduated from high school, he went immediately into the Army, into the Navy. So he was in the service quickly. And but I was in high school after the school was rebuilt. It took, I think we got into the new school, I think that fall, right after beginning 6th grade. So they did well. But what they did while we were in grade school, or after the fire, that the auditorium that was above the gymnasium, you remember that?
Uh-huh.
They divided it into classrooms. And I think we had 6 classrooms there. So they had the kindergarten, and then the first and second grade together, and 3rd and 4th grade, and 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th. The high school went over into the basement of the church. They had to do a lot of reconstructing in the basement of the church. It wasn't like it is now. It's really beautiful down there now, but before it was not nice. And so we went probably 4 or 5 weeks without school, 6 weeks maybe.
Do you remember any particular teachers that you had that?
Well, Sister Anita Rose was the music teacher. She would really try to get the high school kids to go up into the balcony to sing whenever we had mass or when we had devotions or something. And when I would come up, she would look at me and she'd say, "You're welcome to come, but don't you dare try singing." So I never got to sing. I got to get up there with my classmates and friends. But Sister Joseph Marie was the principal. Wonderful, wonderful lady. She was really good. Loved her very much. She was good. We only had sisters of humility. Didn't have any lay teachers. We had Father Sodawasser and Father Ziegler, both taught class over there. I think they just taught religion. And 2 of them would take 2 classes each, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. We had, I think, 25 in our class. And of the class, there's 10 of us still living. That I know. But
And what activities did you do in school?
well, I was involved with the basketball team. I played basketball. We only had 3 sports. We had basketball, baseball, and football. And I went out for baseball, but I wasn't very good. We didn't have a golf team, so I didn't get to play on the golf team. But as soon as school was out, I was out at the golf course immediately. I was out there caddying, playing golf, whatever I could do. But basketball, we had a very good team. When I was a freshman, the varsity got to the sub-state finals. We got beaten in the sub-state. They had some very, very good ball players. Gary Tresmer and Earl Lucart and Bobby Nussbaum, who he just recently died. His brother Jimmy is still living, and so is Dick, I think. Dick Duffy was on that team. Bob Casel was on the team. Good football players. And it was a sad day when they got beat.
Do you remember any special holiday or holy day events that...
Well, a lot of times the pastor would come into the school and he'd say, he says, holy day tomorrow, take the day off. So we had the day off. He could do that. They didn't have to follow the schedule that they do now in the public schools. But he used to come into the classroom in grade school, not in high school. But he'd come in and he'd look at he'd hand out our grade card, our scorecard, whatever you want to call it. Wow, was that scary. He'd look at us and say, you're not doing very well in conduct. You're not doing very well in math. So everybody knew how bad each of us was. But oh my goodness. Sister Mary James was the science teacher. And she also taught mathematics. So I had a lot of classes from her.
Can you tell anything about how you prepared for some of the sacraments? Any, like for First Communion?
I think they held us until third grade instead of now at second grade. I think I have a picture of our First Communion class. But I don't know where it is now. But I don't remember much of the preparation. Confirmation class, I remember they just said, know the sacraments, know the commandments, and the bishop asked the question. I remember at confirmation, he asked, what are the 7 sacraments? And so I told him. I had my hand up, and when I finished, he said, he said, somebody else told me those sacraments. And they said they were baptism and confirmation and Holy Eucharist and penance and extreme unction at that time and ordination. And then a kid couldn't remember the other one. He says, it's alimony instead of matrimony. So he had alimony. And the bishop said, hey, that's pretty close.
Yeah. Was there any particular event or priest that inspired you to join the priesthood?
Oh, I think both Father Sodowasser and Father Ziegler were, most of them were helping us out. And I had a classmate, Father Ed Lang, was in my class. We were ordained together. We had quite a few priests from St. Mary's. But I think I'm the only one still living.
Were you here then when St. Henry's was built?
No. I was ordained in 1959. And the St. Henry's Parish came into existence about 58. I think.
Just about the same time, close to the same time.
So when I was ordained, the Mass was down at St. Mary's. And we were living in Des Moines at that time. We had moved to Des Moines when I was a sophomore at Loras College. And I had a first Mass down in Des Moines at St. Anthony's Parish, where my parents were parishioners. And I had, then the next day I came here and had another first Mass. And then had to be back in the seminary. It was in January that we were ordained, which was terrible snowstorms. Terrible. But,
well, we had heard that you had something to do with the St. Henry Church once.
Well, I had something to do with the building of the, I was here when they built the new building,
Yes.
the new church. But that was, I came here in 86, 1986, and I think we started building in 91. And, but
Something about the windows. Was there a particular story about getting the stained glass windows?
There was a lady that was in the parishioner at St. Henry's at the time, Joanne Miller, was on the committee, was the head of the committee that designed the windows. They went to Winona, Minnesota, to the glass company there, Reinhardt Glass Company. And Joanne Miller did a wonderful job working with her committee and working with the architects at Reinhardt's, and came up with the design of the windows. And we wanted to have the sacraments in the windows, and so the windows on the to the east would be the sacraments of baptism and Eucharist, and the windows on the are sacraments of baptism and confirmation, and the ones on the west would be the ones from for the sacrament of the Eucharist. But they did a wonderful job. The committee did. When they started the building, after we got the design finalized and architect and contractors all signed up, I sort of disappeared. I let the committees do all the work.
Can you tell us about any of the other priests that you worked with while you were here?
Oh my, the Father Symington was down at St. Mary's. Father Hargraven was at St. Mary's. And then he left and Father Symington came. And then Father, oh boy, caught me off guard here. Pardon?
Was it Kopacek?
Kopacek, Father Jerry Kopacek came. And then Father Miller. And then Father
Grady was there before.
Grady was here before Father Miller. And
Father Odekirk.
And Father Odekirk was here too. That's right. He's a classmate of mine.
Oh.
And we're going to celebrate next Monday. We're going to celebrate our 60th anniversary. Father Odekirk and myself, and I think there's 4 others who'll be there. Well, maybe we have one priest that's living in Houston, Texas now. He may not come, and we have another classmate's living in Taiwan, China.
He's probably not coming.
He's probably not coming. Another one living in Florida, but he'll probably come, and another one living in Dubuque. So Father Odekirk and Father Recker are both in Dubuque.
And what kind of a working relationship did you have between the parishes?
Well, probably not as good as it is right now. But we got along very, very well because we had a joint school together, and we tried to finance it together, and we started putting. We had. I started a program of. I called it Alienated Catholics Anonymous. And so the people from St. Mary's, many of them came to it too. And the Religious Ed program started to get put together, and we just tried to do a lot of things together with youth ministry, but today they do so much more.
Did St. Henry ever have an assistant along with the pastor?
Before I came, yes. But when I was in high school, we had 3 priests at St. Mary's. And our family seldom went to St. Mary's Church. We always went up to the Veterans Home for Mass. They always had Mass at the Veterans Home. And there'd be 40 or 50 people from that side of town. We lived over by, at that time, Mercy Hospital, St. Thomas Hospital, which was just a couple blocks from the Veterans Home. And we'd go up there for Sunday Mass because that way we could, it was early, and we could get out to the golf course. Because my dad had to be there, and I had to be there caddy, and so did my brothers. Brothers worked in the pro shop, and so we'd go there.
Can you offer any advice for future generations and for the joining of the parishes back together?
Oh, I think they're doing a great job right now. It's a good thing. In fact, when we were in the process of building the church, we tried to get together with Father Hargraven and some of the people on their parish council to maybe build one church together. And they were not in favor of it at all. And so we didn't. I was thinking in terms of building a church that maybe would be maybe 1,000 people instead of the church holds about 750. And I was thinking maybe 1,000. But that was before they had so many Hispanics come to town. Now the Hispanics really believe, St. Mary's is their parish, and that's very special for them. It's going to be hard. It'll come, but it's going to take a little time for the Hispanics to come over to St. Henry's for Mass when they have a Spanish Mass over here, like they do Sunday afternoons.
Now, I think you're really quite well known for your jokes, and we need a last joke.
Well,
we'll even take a golf joke.
Well, why don't I tell you the one about they have a new species of animals, of antelope. A new species of antelope that can jump higher than a house. And the reason is because a house can't jump.
That would be easy, huh?
I was thinking of other things. I can remember our playground in the back, if you remember, it was about the size of this room. It wasn't very big. And one time, the high school was out there. I was a freshman, and we were all 4 grades were out there. And they were throwing footballs around. And one of the seniors ran into one of the sisters, knocked her down, and she broke her arm. And she was in a cast for the rest of the year.
Oh, dear.
The poor nun. But the burning down of the school was just awful. And we had quite a few. When I was in 8th grade, we had 13 classmates. There were 13 of us in that 8th grade class. When we were in 9th grade, we had 25. They came from Haverhill. 11 students came from Haverhill for our 9th grade. Well, maybe more than that. And there were 11 from Marshalltown and 3 from St. Anthony. I had 3 kids from St. Anthony. And they came in every day.
Without school buses, huh?
But they were not allowed. The school buses were not allowed to pick up kids going to the Catholic school. Not until, maybe in the 70s,
I think.
Pardon, 80s?
70s.
70s.
I think.
Yeah, because I was at Cresco in 66 to 71, and we did not have school buses then. They had to bring 6 kids in a car. That's the way we had a lot of kids come from Haverhill, and they had 2 or 3 cars would pick up other kids and bring them in. And it was dangerous because, they could get, a bus is a lot safer than individual kids driving a car. But it was a very, very good school. I was very well prepared when I went to college. I was very well prepared. I was dumber than dirt, but I came out of it all right.
Well, we really appreciate your time and your memories. And
all my memory is very good.
This is Shirley Bowman, and we're interviewing her and listening to her story about being Catholic. Shirley had, we were interested in interviewing Shirley for a number of reasons, but one was because she is a convert to Catholicism. So Shirley, do you want to tell us a little bit about that first?
Well, there's not too much to tell. I was born and raised in Marshalltown, and I went to the Protestant churches when I was in high school to play basketball. And all the people on my mother's side are Catholics. And my grandfather would take us every now and then to church. Well, I got married in the Episcopal Church here in Marshalltown, and when I was married, we went to California and lived for 2.5 years. While I was in California, I converted to Catholicism. I met a wonderful lady, Bridget King, and she worked for my father-in-law, or her husband did. And I was telling her about my mother's family, and my sister was Catholic, and she said, would you like to take instructions? And I said yes. So I joined the Catholic Church in California in 1948 and came back to Marshalltown, then went to St. Mary's, of course, and joined there and worked in the ladies' ACCW, they call it now. Yeah. And then when St. Henry's was built, it was recommended that the people on the south side of the tracks join the St. Henry Church, and the people on the north side go to St. Mary's. Well, it didn't work out because people wouldn't leave St. Mary's. But we had a wonderful community at St. Henry's. And Father O'Brien, Roger O'Brien, was the first pastor. And a bunch of ladies cleaned the church, dusted and cleaned the church. And then we were lucky to have 4 nuns come to teach in the school. So we went into their house and cleaned it. And their house was on the southwest side of Center and Olive. And Father O'Brien's house was on the southwest corner of Olive and 3rd Street. So we, after a few years, I can't remember the year, but we decided that we needed a fundraiser. So we had what we called a Mayfest. And it was a dinner, and then the men in the parish built little booths, and we sold things and that people made. And one thing that I do remember is Mary Williams bought material, and a whole bunch of ladies, I don't know how many, sewed in their home and made aprons. We had a gob of made aprons, and they all sold. And it was kind of like a little festival, but very little. And we had a wonderful dinner, and everybody, I always say everybody, but many, many people from Marshalltown came to the dinner. So we got acquainted that way.
How did St. Henry's get built? I mean, what was there a fundraising, or did you, Father Monsignor Scahill, I think, was the pastor?
Yes. He was let's see.
At St. Mary's.
The Archdiocese they don't give you money, they loan it, I think. But that and the fundraiser, I suppose.
Right.
But I can't remember because they didn't ask the people that were going to join, so I can't remember except that.
And at the time, St. Henry's and the field, that was kind of the edge of town, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
It was the south
Some of the
edge.
Well, when I lived in Marshalltown, Olive Street, which is now, was the end of the paving. And it was gravel from that time on. You had to drive to Newton on gravel roads. And then it was all farmland.
Mm-hmm. So that's really a memory then to explain how much growth has been.
Yes, yes.
The southern growth. in Marshalltown. What about Lenahan? I know your girls went to Lenahan to school.
Yes. My daughter, youngest daughter, graduated in the last class. And, well, that was a fundraiser. But at that time, it was the time when, well, there's so many government regulations, and you had to have like a library, you had to have everything. And we didn't have as many nuns, and so it was so too expensive, I think, and that's why they had to sell it.
And so now, when people say Lenahan, they don't think of the Catholic high school. They think of the public school for the 5th and 6th graders.
It was a very nice school.
It was a nice school. You were Catholic when we said the Mass in Latin. And do you
Yes.
remember when they
Yes.
changed to English?
I can't remember the year.
Sometime after 1963, I think.
53?
63.
63,
yeah,
I know
after.
it was. But it was kind of nice. We went overseas to see our son when he was in the service. And it was kind of nice to go with the Latin Mass that they had. So we could at least follow.
Right. It sounds like you were active first at St. Mary's with the altar and rosaries, and then you went to St. Henry's and you got busy with the women there.
Yes. I think I could say that I was very active in the church and in other things in Marshalltown. I really feel that with Father O'Brien, he was a very outgoing priest, loved people, and if he wanted to know something about the town or anything, he would ask whoever was in charge of it. He didn't care whether they were Catholic or not, and I think everybody knew him down. So I feel that he was a good one that opened up the Catholics to participate in things. Well, for instance, in the church, it was home and school. So, for
Instead
the
of PTA.
parents and teachers. Well, we joined the PTA, and we joined the city council. So we entered the community, and I think he was a great instigator of that. Because the Catholics sometimes were a little close.
Yeah. What advice could you give to families raising children nowadays? You've raised a family and you have a big family now.
Well, I guess the only thing I can say, well, everything's so different now. All of this.
Yeah, the technology.
And I would say cut a lot of that out and be, just stay together.
Talk to each other.
And talk to each other. Communication, I guess, is the main thing. I know we used to sit at the table, I bet, for 45 minutes or more, and we always ate at 6 o'clock. So everybody knew what time we ate, and they were there. So I think you have to have rules and regulations. Parents have to stay home, and I think that's why a lot of things are not being successful, because parents are working on it today, both parents.
Both parents.
And so when they come home at night, they want to stay with their children, which is good. But it's a little different now than when I was raising children. I'm old, you know. I'm 94.
What do you think about this combining of St. Mary and St. Henry churches?
Oh, I think it's great.
Good.
It's great. Well, it makes a great community.
Talk about being separate. We don't need to be separate.
No.
The reason we're doing these interviews is to remember being Catholic.
Right.
And Catholic is everybody.
Right.
You know,
Right.
universal church.
Right. And you know, of course I go on Saturday night, and it's always packed. And of course, in my mind, I think they follow the priest.
Oh.
I don't know, but you can see the difference in the people.
Oh.
I do, anyway.
Do you think you'll go to St. Mary's ever to church?
Oh, well, sure,
Sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I missed a holy day. This is a while ago, before I moved here.
Mhm.
And I went up to the Spanish Mass.
Mhm.
Of course, I couldn't understand anything they said, but I could go up to communion. I knew when they went to communion and
Sure.
when they didn't. So,
Yeah.
it's as you say, it's just a whole community,
Mhm.
and know a lot of people that have come to town.
Mhm.
Very nice people, some of them.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell us for your video?
I can't think of anything.
No.
Well, let's see. I have 3 children, 11 grandchildren, and I have 28 great-grandchildren, and 1 on the way this month.
Oh,
So that's my family.
there's a lot of Bowmans.
A lot of Bowmans.
Mhm. A longtime member of St. Patrick's
Oh.
Study Club.
Over 70 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, well, the reason they were formed was the Archdiocese recommended that they form study clubs in the churches.
Mhm.
There was one at St. Mary's, but and nobody else, there's just a few people out of the parishes belonged.
Mhm.
So they formed, there were a lot of them. But as things happened, some dwindled off. And I belonged to St. Teresa first. And St. Patrick's got fewer members. So we joined together and called it St. Patrick's Study Club.
Okay.
So we have it's just social, and yet we have a good program about, we're supposed to, about the church. I think we talk more than we educate each other.
Thank you, Shirley, for your memories and
Well,
your time.
thank you, and I think that I'm very fortunate to be able to worship at St. Henry's for all these years.
Mhm. It's a beautiful
And
church.
glad I became a Catholic.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Well, very good. Very good. Well, thank you